What if one country could suddenly decide who gets access to 25% of the world's oil? What if the most important trade route on Earth was no longer free? Right now, that's exactly what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is trying to turn this narrow passage into a $2 million toll gate, a move that could reshape global trade, challenge U.S. power, and send shockwaves through the entire world economy. And the most surprising part? The United States might not be able to stop it. I'm Asher, and today we're breaking down how one strategic choke point could change the balance of power in the world. The passage through the Strait of Hormuz could become paid. At least, that's what Iran is reportedly demanding as part of its negotiations with the United States. Such a measure could significantly enrich the country. But would Donald Trump be willing to make such concessions? And could such a system really be implemented? First, we need to quickly clarify the situation on the ground. The Strait of Hormuz has been heavily discussed. It has become a major issue in the war in Iran launched by the United States and Israel on February 28th. Before the war, between 20% and 25% of the world's oil and gas production passed through this strategic route. But in retaliation for the bombings, Iran immediately blocked this maritime passage by attacking or threatening most of the ships crossing it. This blockade caused major disruptions in the global economy. So in this context, Donald Trump has been trying to secure the reopening of the strait. He even made the current ceasefire conditional on Iran reopening it. Iran agreed, although in reality, the situation remains much more complex. Even if a few ships have resumed crossing, we're talking about only around 10 vessels. Most still prefer to stay away. For comparison, before the war, about 128 ships passed through this strategic point every day. So, why are so few ships returning? First reason, shipping companies consider the ceasefire too fragile. Iran has already threatened Israel with retaliation, while Israeli forces continue heavy bombings in Lebanon. Israel claims to target Hezbollah, an Iran-backed armed group. But from Iran's perspective, attacking Hezbollah is essentially an indirect attack on Iran itself. So the situation is considered too risky and uncertain. On top of that, Iran may have placed explosive mines in the strait. According to the Financial Times, oil tankers in the region even received radio warnings. They could be targeted if they didn't first obtain approval from Iranian authorities. So clearly, security is a major issue. But there's another reason ships aren't returning, and this one is economic and political. According to several investigations, Iran has effectively introduced a form of toll system in the Strait of Hormuz. In practical terms, most ships currently passing through are linked to Iran or its allies. For others, they must provide detailed information, cargo type, ownership, crew list, to obtain an access code. In other words, Iran controls who enters and exits the strait. And more importantly, each passage reportedly costs around $2 million, payable in cryptocurrency or Chinese yuan. This brings several advantages for Iran. It allows them to bypass the dollar-dominated global banking system and partially evade Western sanctions. Using non-dollar currencies also sends a strong political message, a direct challenge to U.S. financial dominance. Because this is where things get serious. If this system becomes official, it doesn't just affect Iran or the United States, it affects the entire global economy. Countries that depend on oil flowing through this strait, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, or the UAE, could suddenly face higher costs. That means higher energy prices, higher transportation costs, and ultimately, higher prices for consumers around the world. But more importantly, it creates a precedent. For the first time, a country would successfully charge for access to a natural maritime choke point. And if that happens, what stops other countries from doing the same? Now, Iran wants to formalize this toll system, and this issue is reportedly part of ongoing negotiations with the United States. The goal is clear: maintain control of the strait and generate massive daily revenue. We're talking about millions of dollars per day. Iran even proposed sharing control with Oman, but Oman rejected the idea. Why? Because legally, freedom of navigation is a fundamental principle of international law. Unlike artificial canals like the Panama Canal, the Strait of Hormuz is a natural passage. Imposing a toll would represent a major and unprecedented shift. Because at first glance, the solution seems simple. The United States has one of the most powerful navies in the world. So why not just secure the Strait of Hormuz and reopen it by force? In reality, it's far more complicated. First, the Strait of Hormuz is an extremely narrow and sensitive choke point. Any direct military intervention would carry massive risks. We're talking about potential escalation into a full-scale regional war. Iran has spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of scenario. Missiles, drones, naval mines, fast attack boats, all designed to make the strait as dangerous as possible for any foreign navy. Even the most advanced fleets cannot operate freely in such an environment without significant risk. And then there's the economic factor. Any escalation would likely send oil prices skyrocketing overnight, which means global markets could panic and the crisis could spiral far beyond the region. So for Washington, this is not just a military question, it's a strategic dilemma. Act and risk a larger war, or hold back and allow Iran to reshape the rules of global trade. So how are the United States reacting? Interestingly, Donald Trump initially said such a toll system could be a great thing. He even mentioned the possibility of a joint venture with Iran, but shortly after he changed his tone, accusing Iran of violating agreements and mishandling the situation. Analysts say Trump might benefit from such a system economically, but politically, it could be seen as a sign of weakness. Accepting a toll would imply that the U.S. cannot secure one of the most critical trade routes in the world, and nothing is finalized yet. There's no guarantee Iran would even agree to cooperate with the U.S. Meanwhile, Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE strongly oppose this idea, because it would force them to pay for access to a route that has always been free. The European Union and France have also expressed concerns. At the same time, Israeli bombings in Lebanon continue. According to Lebanese authorities, hundreds have been killed and over 1,000 injured in recent strikes. The United Nations reports many civilian casualties, including children. Hezbollah has responded with rocket attacks on northern Israel. Negotiations between Lebanon and Israel are expected next week in Washington, the first in decades. But Israel has made its position clear. No ceasefire with Hezbollah. The objective is disarmament and long-term peace. Meanwhile, broader negotiations between Iran and the United States are set to begin. But Iran has one key condition: a ceasefire on all fronts, including Lebanon. So in the end, this isn't just about a narrow stretch of water in the Middle East. It's about control. Control over energy, control over trade, and ultimately, control over the global economy. Because if a single country can decide who passes and who pays, then the rules of globalization are already changing. And the Strait of Hormuz might just be the first place where we see it happen. For now, the situation remains fragile. But one thing is certain. The world is entering a new era of power, and it's only just beginning. I'm Asher. If you found this breakdown useful, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.